Today we are talking about the best ways to increase traffic to your website.
Hey y'all, I'm Autumn Evans, strategic branding and website designer. I work for service providers and female entrepreneurs who want to elevate their brand to turn heads and open wallets. I'm sharing with you my top tricks and tips for you to do the same. So let's go.
So increasing traffic to your website doesn't have to be as complicated as it might seem. But there is more to do than just posting on social media. There are 3 search tools, the top search tools for your website. Number 1 is Google. That's your website. And like making sure that you're showing up on Google, which is the SEO, which I talked about in my previous video. Number 2 is YouTube. Google and YouTube are best buds. They are owned. YouTube is owned by Google. So if you use YouTube and you use Google, you're going to be more likely to show up in Google search results because YouTube videos now show up in search results as well. The third top search tool is Pinterest. So if you're using your website, meaning like a blog on your website, which we're going to talk about in a second, then you should be using Pinterest. And if you're using YouTube, you should be using a blog and Pinterest as well. So Pinterest is not considered really a social platform anymore as much as it is considered a social Okay, let's start that over. Pinterest is not as much as a social platform as a search platform. Think about it. When you need a recipe for boiling eggs in your Instant Pot, where are you going to search? You might search Google, but you also might search Pinterest because that's where we get our best ideas for the top crafts and for mommy stuff and for recipes. And if you're looking for information about design or different things, you're going to look on Pinterest. And Pinterest also shows up in Google search results, especially the Google image results, which a lot of people will search something and just click on images and to get ideas on different things. So you should be using Pinterest. Another way you can show up is podcasts. So not everybody's going to be on a podcast, but if you use podcasts, you should also be using blogging and Pinterest as well, because anytime you post a blog, you should have a corresponding image on Pinterest as a search tool as well. So let's talk a little bit more about blogging. Blogging is super important for your website. No matter what kind of website you have, it's always a good idea to have a blog as well. Just to share, give value to your clients and your customers. First, it builds trust for your clients and your customers, but it also builds trust with Google, which is super important because Google likes when you have frequent information. So if you're doing a blog, you should be fairly consistent at it. So I try to tell my clients, and I try for myself, to have a blog once a week. And I know how that can be a little bit frustrating with time constraints, but this is something you can always outsource as well if you have the funds to do that. But also you can, as you're thinking about ideas, just jot those down and then do a bunch of blogs at the same time to save some time. So that's an idea because I know for a lot of my clients, especially the ones that don't already have a blog, adding a blog seems like such a huge thing to do, but it doesn't have to be. On your blog, you really don't want to write completely grammatically correct. I mean, you want to have good grammar, but you don't have to make it a formal paper. You want to write kind of like you talk because you want your client and your customer to connect with you, view you as a real person. They don't want to read a research paper. So it's not as complicated as it might seem, or as time consuming as it might seem. But like one blog post once a week is good enough for you to increase your trustworthiness on Google. Now let's talk about social media. So social media is an important part of your strategy, because all things for SEO and Google takes time. For like anything you do now, you might not see a result for about 3 to 6 months. It takes time for Google, because they want to make sure that you're consistent and that they are giving their rankings and for their clients, meaning anybody that searches on Google, that they would have a good experience, that they are giving the best results for that client, so that they can build trustworthiness and people want to use Google. If Google gave bad results, people wouldn't search on Google as much because they wasn't giving good results. So that's why Google takes it very seriously and tries to provide the best results for a search that a user gives. So social media is pretty important for a short-term plan. So sharing your link in groups and on your Facebook page, and having your Facebook, your personal Facebook and your business page linked to your website is super important, and sharing that is important for a short-term gain. But anything that happens on social media has a very short span life. So it's not necessarily something that you want to depend on completely. You want to build the long-term strategy that's going to pay off a whole lot better than on social media. So sharing on social media is important, but more important is that long-term strategy. But in the short term, social media is very important. Another thing that some people don't even know about is Google My Biz. So Google My Business, it's Google My Business, not Biz. Don't search B-I-Z. It's Google My Business. It's really, really good for local businesses. So if you're an online service provider that doesn't do any local meetups with clients, then I think it's against the terms of service to use Google My Business. But like for me, I meet up with clients, some local clients as well. So I want to be on Google My Business. So like if somebody in your area searches, for example, for me, they search website designer in Virginia, then I might show up on the maps. And the good thing about Google My Business is it shows up really fast. So I think for me, it took about 2 weeks for me to show up in the maps search, which is a whole lot quicker than my website would show up for any other search, because Google, like I said, it takes time for you to show up on Google, like 3 to 6 months. Sometimes shorter. It just depends. Each situation is a little bit different and unique. So that's why Google My Business is super important for you to show up on the map. It gets you on Google a lot faster. But like I said, if you're an online service provider that does not meet with your clients locally, it's not something that you want to do, because you could get in trouble. And like I talked about in my previous video, Rank Math is another way to increase your traffic, because it increases your SEO, which is search engine optimization, which is Google, and it helps you to make sure that your website is going to be liked by Google. So you should always follow those recommendations. If you want to see an overview of that, go to my previous video as well. So those are my top tips on how to increase website traffic. If you want me to go into more details about a certain one of the certain ways or more of those, leave a comment below. So I hope that this really helped you get some ideas on some ways to increase your traffic. Thank you for watching.